Welcome to the Finance Marketing Podcast, a show that empowers finance professionals to market their businesses in ways that feel good and actually achieve results. I'm your host, Hillary. I've been working with folks in financial services to develop marketing strategies that work and create results-oriented marketing content since 2020. And I've learned a lot about what works in finance marketing, what doesn't work, and where financial services pros get stuck. Join us each Friday as we explore real, effective ways to market your finance business and connect with folks who truly embody your ideal clients. My guest this week is Dr. Jon Randall, founder of Extraordinary Financial Advisors. And if you have been listening to this podcast for any length of time, Jon is probably not a stranger to you. This is Jon's third time joining me on the show, and I have to say his first two episodes are in my most top listened to episodes in the entire podcast catalog. So if you haven't heard those yet, I'm going to link to both of them in the show notes below. And I strongly encourage you to go back and listen if you are an advisor who wants to grow and scale their practice. They are absolutely worth your time. So Jon founded Extraordinary Financial Advisors, also known as XFA, to help advisory practices break through the revenue ceilings that so many hit between $1 and $1.5 million and scale into 8 and 9-figure practices. He brings a really unique lens to this work. He holds a PhD in performance psychology, and he uses that background to help advisors understand not just what to do differently, but why they're getting stuck doing the same things over and over again. One of my favorite things that Jon says is, what got you here will not get you there. And I think that's just such an important kind of mindset reframe. So today, Jon and I are diving into one of the topics that comes up again and again with financial advisors who are growing, which is referrals. Referrals are, of course, the number one client acquisition method for most advisory practices, but getting more of the right referrals consistently and intentionally is something many advisors really struggle with. So Jon breaks down the two biggest constraints he sees holding advisors back from a steady stream of high-quality referrals and walks through the mindset shifts and practical frameworks that the top advisors he works with are using to change that. And speaking of going even deeper on this topic, Jon and I are actually hosting a joint live session next Wednesday, March 11th at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern, called How Top Advisors Get Referrals Without Asking. We'll be expanding on everything that we cover in today's episode, so you can really think of today's episode as kind of an appetizer for that. And we will be opening it up for live Q&A at the end so that you can come and ask questions specific to your practice and your situation. I'll have the registration link down in the show notes, and I do really hope to see you there. So without further ado, let's get into it. Jon, thank you so much for joining me again on the Finance Marketing Podcast. How are you today?
Doing great. I'm so glad to be back on my favorite podcast.
Well, can you give us, you've been on the podcast, I think this is your third time on the podcast, which I am so excited that you're here again because your episodes are actually some of my top listened to episodes. I think people really resonate with what you have to say and what you have to teach. So can you just give us a quick little intro about who you are, what it is you do for people who haven't heard the last two, which they should, and then we'll jump into referrals.
Absolutely. I'm Dr. Jon Randall, the founder of Extraordinary Financial Advisors. We go by XFA or xfa.coach, which is our website for short. And we help practices scale. So we find practices hit a typical ceiling around between $1 million to $1.5 million, and they struggle to do multiple millions, 8 figures, 9 figures, like some of the XFA practices we work with. So we give them the roadmap of how to overcome those obstacles that are very typical. And we've just found the same constraints at each revenue level. So if advisors under $1 million trying to get to $1 million, same things. If practice is like 1 to 2 million, same things. 2 to 10 million, same things. Over 10 million, same things. And over 100 million, same things. So we just help overcome the common issues that we just see time and time again. It's very consistent, and how to leapfrog those and jump ahead to 10x a practice within 5 to 7 years.
I love that, Jon. So getting into referrals, a lot of advisors would say referrals are kind of the lifeblood of their business. They build their business on referrals. They're such an important part of the growth. But the frustrating thing about referrals is you can't control when they come in. You can't suddenly, do a big campaign really and like turn on the faucet to get more referrals coming in. But there are definitely things that you can do to increase both the quality and the frequency of referrals. So let's get into some of the issues that you see advisors having with referrals.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. It's in that, not in the bucket that we can directly control, but it's a bucket we can influence.
Mm-hmm.
So I find there's a lot of great methods out there, right? And you're right. The number one client acquisition method for advisors is referrals from existing clients. But how do we get better at that, right? That's always what I'm on. How do we get better at the thing that's working the most? And there's a couple of constraints within this one that I've found that have led to advisors not getting enough referrals or getting random referrals in their practice. So the first one is lack of focus. And some of it just has to do with how we are as advisors. So the biggest thing I learned getting a PhD in performance psychology, you'll appreciate this, Hillary. I joke with advisors and say, I got it to learn why advisors don't do what they should be doing. But it helped me just understand how we are as humans more. So our brain craves equilibrium. So when something different comes along, our brain says, no, that's not the way we do it around here. We do it this way.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think advisors just get in these cycles of doing things the same way. And you look back at our roots of becoming advisors, it's you just need clients and assets, right? You bring in anybody and it's you get clients from anywhere and you just try and grow. And it works up to a certain point, then it starts working against you.
Mm-hmm.
And so within each book, there is an avenue to a lot of other clients, just like the ideal clients in your book. They're sitting there in your top 20 clients. There's probably 2 or 3 avenues that could really make your career. But it's, I think in the busyness of just being an advisor, there's compliance, there's, markets are crazy today, right? There's always things going on that keeps advisors focused off of these really key things that they should be doing, they should be focusing on. And so lack of focus is just simply not really truly having a target market.
Mm-hmm.
It's rare I find that an advisor has an office, it's across the street from some massive company. Everyone at the massive company would be ideal clients, and they just have like a monopoly on that.
Mm-hmm.
There are some advisors that have that, but it's extremely rare. So most books are just kind of a wide range of a lot of different clients. And so if there is no focus, it's harder to get new people. So just by overcoming that and focusing on 1 or 2 or 3 ideal clients that have access to other people like them, you have a much better chance. So I relate it to how can you get in a pond that's so small that you're the only advisor in that pond?
Mm.
And I'll give you a great example. The most common thing I hear, or most common target, should say, I hear advisors have is business owners.
Mm-hmm.
All right, there's over 28 million business owners in America. That's a really large ocean.
Right.
And advisors are swimming around like sharks trying to, get that right. But how can you narrow that down to not just people that own a business? Maybe it's people that own a car dealership business. People that own a car dealership business of a specific brand, maybe people that own multiple car dealerships of the specific brand in your area, and there's 4 of them, and one is your client. Like that's a really small pond. And if you focus so much on that small pond that I specialize in this exact person, there's 3 other people exactly like them, like that's target marketing. And so I just find people are way too wide and it's hard to get to those other 3 people because it's not known to them. So we'll talk about framing next, but what, I mean, you see a lot of what advisors are doing. What's your thoughts on this kind of lack of not going deep enough on the focus?
Yeah, I think I definitely fall in the camp of you're not going to get the referrals that you want to get, and you're not going to attract even from a marketing standpoint, the people that you want to get unless you are hyper focused. I think that, I'm almost a little, I love how hard you go on this area. Like you have to get so focused, so focused. I think I've often been a little bit hesitant to like get to that level of specificity, not from the perspective of I don't think that works, but just from a perspective of I want you to have enough people, in that pool to be able to come to you. And so I think what I'm wondering is, what does this look like in practice when you are that hyper focused on this is my target market? Are we updating the website? Are we updating the LinkedIn profile? Like, how much visibility does this focus deserve in the way that we show up as advisors online and when we're talking to clients?
Great question. So let's hit kind of high level, then super tactical, how it all ties together. So high level, Look, if anyone listening, you pick up to 3 potential targets.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at your top ideal clients that you want to duplicate, and it may not just be your revenue profit level, might be ease of working with them or likability. And if you choose up to 3, because more than that's just too many to focus on, but if you choose 1 or 2 or 3 to go deeper with, I think what's tough for advisors, they'll advisors like short wins, right? They always chase the shiny objects. So if it's, hey, I went down this path of just focusing on the small pond, I tried, and after a month or 2, it just didn't work. So I'm going to move on to the next shiny thing. Hey, you might have to swim in that pond for a year or 2, but if these are
Right.
really ideal people, and you want to get to the others that are exactly like these people, it's going to be a commitment there. Now, you might shift and change. You might say, you know what, it's just not going to work out. There's not fish in that pond. That's okay. But just you've got to give it time, and you got to listen to the person that's in that pond and let them guide you to the other people. And if they say you're never going to get them, okay, let's go to a different pond and have a different target. But it is about getting to those other people. So to high level, just conceptually, that's really key. So yes, if you are going to focus on that pond, like people that own multiple car dealerships of a specific brand in your specific part of the country, if you're going to go down that path, then yes, it would be great if your content spoke to those people, because people check this out. And I learned this from you, Hillary, that when you look up something, like we look up advisors all the time that are reaching out to us, we'll Google them, we'll check them out, and you know what, a lot of times we see their LinkedIn profile will pop up before their webpage.
Yeah.
And so when a prospect checks you out and Googles you and checks you out, and when they see these social media links or maybe on your website, just depending on your level of compliance, what you're allowed to do out there, what are they going to see? Is a target market going to see, oh my gosh, they're speaking to me. They're speaking my language. They actually called me out. And so it is helpful to surround it that, for that instance that happens, it's worth it. It's worth it if you do have a few markets, you have some things there. If you get narrowed that down, you're down to 2 or maybe 1 specific target market, then everything could coordinate with that. Your LinkedIn profile, your social media content, where people will check you out, check out videos or articles, whatever you might be putting out there. I think it all really relates. So high level, it's picking it, and then it's going down, and we'll talk about framing next, which is another constraint. But if you can tie everything together, which is what you're great at, Hillary, I think that's the key to really winning big in these really small ponds, of being the only advisor that would ever specialize in that small of a group.
And I think too, John, like what it comes down to here is just thinking about, because if you're targeting all of your content towards this narrow focus, it feels like there's some risk there that you're going to alienate other people outside of that focus that could potentially be great clients. But you have to weigh kind of the risk and the reward of like, what is the payoff if I get 5 clients just like this client that I have here? What could that then do for my practice? What could that do for referrals coming down the road from this new group of really, really, really great clients that I have? And so I think too, like just kind of being realistic about, it might feel risky, but is the reward worth it?
That's the whole key, right? Would you
Absolutely.
like 3 whale clients or 30 average clients?
Right.
It's a lot, 10 times more work to work with the average clients, but
Right.
that's the focus. So the ones I really see bringing in huge new clients that are saying, wow, I brought in a whale, now I can get rid of the bottom third of my practice and have a lot less work. That's how they're doing it. That's exactly how they're doing it. And I'm talking about like 8-figure new accounts, like really, really solid new accounts. I mean, it's the industry average client right now is 1.66 million. Based on some studies like Cerulli Investment News, as of 2025, we're recording this in early 2026. So, that's an average client, and that's an average size client for you. If that's a little bit larger than your client, that's fine. But how do you get like a 5 million plus level client? Not a lot of advisors are swimming in those ponds, but if you have a client at that level, might have other people just like them. That's the way to get to them. That is the way to get to them. And I see the advisors that are acquiring them, again, they can have, they can scale and have other advisors work with other clients, but wouldn't it be great? We had the number 5 Bank Barron's advisor speak at one of our events, and we feature a lot of the stars, like the really good advisors. And he put this best. He said, if you're doing 1.5 million with 150 clients, which is, kind of average number of clients, 150. What if you made some adjustments, increased pricing, duplicated some top clients, and you did 1.5 million with 100 clients, right? It's a third less work for the same thing.
Right.
So if you want to move up market and duplicate your best people, this is really it. And targeting on these is the way that advisors are winning.
Right. Okay. So let's talk about framing.
Yeah. So framing's the other constraint. So I think everyone listening can relate to this. Every advisor in the world has gotten random referrals, right?
Yeah.
Kids of clients that aren't even near qualified. Someone's brother that has no money, right? My neighbor is just a nice person. Can you help them out? And so this happens because the lack of framing. So people refer because they're just trying to help other people out. But if they're helping other people out and they don't know who you help best, it's going to be random. So if you're receiving random referrals and not people in your top of your book or your ideal target, this is why. So we talked in one of our podcasts about just the process of really how to focus on this group, but how to position too. How to position with them that you're the type of person I help best, and describe that to them, and then let them know that other people exactly like them is who help best. So going back to that really small pond, that I specialize in working people in this small pond, right? Exactly you. And to let them know that, frame with them that these are the type of people I help best, right? Sure, if your brother or kid needs help, fine, I'll help them out. But these are the people I specialize in and help best. So the more you can do that, the more likely you are to get people referred in your target market. So the advisors we see using our IPO referral method process, the ones that use that, they're getting a chance at those larger clients, right? And they're landing them as larger clients, because who else specializes in that small of a pond? Right. It's kind of surprising to them that, wow, I know some advisors want my business, but no one really specializes in me, right? They're kind of generalist, working with anybody. So if you're an athlete and had some really obscure, injury, and there was like one surgery in the world, or one surgeon in the world that like helped with that, they would be a specialist. My favorite example is, if anyone that's heard of baseball or played baseball, is the Tommy John surgery. There was like one surgeon that specialized with this weird thing to repair pitchers' elbows. And they just dominate. He's the only one that did it. Now a ton of them do it, and it's kind of a well-known industry for that type of athlete, for baseball players. But that's a specialist, right? That's extreme specialist. And when you specialize, you can charge whatever you want, right? It's actually easier to acquire people. You can work with less people and have a more lucrative business. So it's focused, but then it's that framing and helping people understand that I help people exactly like you.
And I think that this is important. I mean, you do have to, if you want people to know what kind of people you work with best, you have to tell them, right? You can't just assume that they're going to know, or that they're going to understand that they're your best client, or whatever it might be. You do have to bring it up.
Yeah. And there's some very popular referral like approaches, the scripts out there, but they all lack this. They all lack the framing of you're exactly the person I help best. And here's why. And describing them, right? That I know everything there is to know about people that own multiple, XYZ brand dealerships in our part of the country.
Right.
And when you can help them understand that, and if they're getting value and they say, yeah, you know everything about me. If you can help them understand that and frame that those other people just like you, that's who I help best, you're more likely to get those people, right? It's more likely to get them.
So a lot of advisors that I've talked to over the past year, and I've done quite a lot of work with referrals over the past year, and kind of, building up those referral systems so that advisors can get better referrals more frequently, is that they're averse to using scripts. It makes them uncomfortable. It makes clients uncomfortable. It just doesn't feel very natural. Whereas, everything that came before that in their meeting was very natural and all of that. How do you see the advisors that you work with responding to this idea of using scripts? Do you recommend they use scripts, or do you recommend something different?
If it's awkward, it's good. I hear you. It can't be awkward for the advisor, because if it is, it's going to be awkward for the client.
Yeah.
It's a problem. They're going to see right through it. It's going to be weird, and no referrals are going to happen. I just think a framework helps.
Yes.
Right. Advisors have kind of learned the framework to have their client meetings, even if it's become like unconscious competence because they've just been doing it for so long. They work within some kind of framework and it's just natural to them. So
Yeah.
you want the referral approach to be the same way and genuine. So that's what the IPO method is. It's a framework to have the conversation. You don't have to use the exact words, right? To use like everything word for word is not natural unless you're like a superior actor and do that for a living. It's probably not going to happen, right? So the framing aspect is just any point that value is verified from a client, where you ask them, hey, is there anything I could do that's better? Or if they say, oh my gosh, you've been so helpful, you're great, that's good. Then it's really, either thanking them for being a client or praising them for being a client. I like the thank you. I think it's a great way to do the praise part. It's just, oh my gosh, thank you for being a client. You're the type of person I help best, and here's why.
Yeah.
I think that could be a natural thing, that I'm just thankful to work with you. And because you own multiple car dealership, like you're just super specifically who I help best. You're one of my favorite people to work with. And then isn't an awkward, like, who do you know? Who are the other three in our area that own, right? It's not an awkward pitch. It's just turning their radar on and antenna up that, hey, if there's ever anyone just like you, I'll always make time for them. So it's just got to become natural. It's got to become natural. Yeah. And it's interesting you brought up at the end of the meeting too. I read a study, a Harvard study last week, that the average person in a 30-minute meeting is only going to retain 3 minutes of it. So advisors in your long meetings with clients, like they're not financial people, and they probably don't have a clue of half of what you're talking about. They're going to retain 3 minutes of every 30. So to bolt this on the end is not always ideal. I like these separate, as a separate outreach. I mean, how cool would it be if like your doctor or your favorite restaurant just called you out of the blue and said, you know what, Hillary, thank you so much for being a client. We just love working with you. We love when your family comes to our restaurant, or whatever the provider may be. No one really does that. So it's very flattering to do that and just reach out to somebody that's separate from other interactions. It'll be memorable for them. But if you do that same thing, that, hey, I really specialize in working with you. I enjoy you so much. You're the exactly type of person I can help best. If there's anyone exactly like you, I'll always make time for them. So an advisor's just version of that, framing is all that they need. They just need a framework to mention things. And it's like a few bullet points, right? It's really simple framework, and they can insert their own words. I just find that the scripts are too much for them to effectively do, but no framework isn't great. And it usually doesn't lead to much, which is where most advisors get stuck.
Right. This middle ground is so important. Really quick, I want to give a quick plug for that episode that we recorded last year, actually, on your IPO method. I will link to it in the show notes. I think your IPO method is so clear for getting really good referrals. So anyone listening to this episode should definitely listen to that one next if they haven't. And then the other thing is, you were talking through, maybe just calling up, thanking somebody for being a client. That's kind of your natural way into introducing this framing, or having, that little sentence just to put it in their ear. I also think, a lot of advisors will do client gifts, or if you're not doing client gifts can be a really great way to kind of build that reciprocity in a way. You send them a little gift as a thank you for being a client. And then that's also a great way, or a great time, to make that ask as well. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think anytime the client feels really good is when you want to have that conversation. And just remember, the thing we can influence, we can't control it. We can influence turning somebody's radar on and antenna up when they go off into their world, right? That's really all we can do with referrals. Right. So if they're feeling really good about the relationship, they voiced it with something you help them with, or you just ask them, hey, we want to be the best at people in the small pond. Is there anything you see we can do better? And they're like, no, you're doing amazing. Okay, awesome. Thank you. So anytime the client has recognized some kind of value, or they said, oh my gosh, thank you for, the Tiffany glasses, whatever the neat gift may have been that the client received, that is the time to turn people's radar on, right? That's the time to have like the, PO, the IPO conversation, is just to go in there and help frame who you help best, and just put out the offer there that, hey, I'll always make time for people exactly like you. It's the best time to do it. So those are like influencers, right? The touches, the gifts, a call, just say, thank you for being a client. They're nice things that really, really help. And then if you're really a next level and you've got, your social media speaks, your content speaks to your targets, I mean, then it's just so much easier when someone checks you out that, oh my gosh, they're talking to me. This
Right.
person does specialize in what I do. They weren't making it up. It's so much easier to get a client that way.
Right. Absolutely. It kind of builds that excitement. They can't wait to reach out to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, as we kind of wrap this up, Jon, is there anything that I haven't asked you yet that you think advisors should know, or any other little, tactical things that they could be doing or things to think about around this
I think
idea?
overall, when advisors hear this, they don't go deep enough. And I really cannot emphasize that enough. They'll say, oh, I work with surgeons. Okay, there's a lot of those. Like, keep going deeper. I
Mm-hmm.
work with orthopedic surgeons. Okay, keep going deeper. I work with
Mm-hmm.
orthopedic surgeons. The one I like happens to work with athletes. Okay, going deeper. What kind of athletes? Well, they
Mm-hmm.
specialize in tennis players. Okay, what kind of tennis players? They specialize in helping tennis players at XYZ University, and there's 3 others like them. That's the level we want to go to, right? How can you get
Yeah.
down to a pond that's like less than 10 super ideal clients, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're working in, I help people at this company and there's 10,000 employees. Okay, that's really big. And you're going to be, in a giant lake with a lot of sharks swimming in there, right, with you. It's about going deeper than you think you should and
Mm-hmm.
trying to get to the next people just like them. And look, once you get a bunch of people in that, if there's only 4 people in that pond, you get 2 become your client. Pretty awesome. I bet you'll have a better chance of getting the other 2. But then from there, you could take a little bit level out, right? You could
Right.
listen to your guides of, hey, there's other people just like me over here. I know some other people that own, in my example of multiple car dealerships, there's people over here in this pond that are exactly like us, and there's 5 of them. Why don't I introduce you and get you over into this one? They'll guide you to the next steps. But the biggest thing I can say is go deeper than you think you should.
Mm-hmm. I actually just want to draw a circle around that really quick, because I think it's important is that when you are going into this level of focus, it doesn't mean that this is who you're going to be going after for the next 20 years of your career
Yeah.
necessarily, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it is, but it's the very first step. And then how that evolves over the course of the next 20 years is just going to be, growth is never always upwards and to the right, but like the trajectory there is going to be hopefully generally upwards and to the right
Yeah.
as you take your next steps and learn about who you
Yeah.
serve best and who wants to work with you and all of those things.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it could be a matter of months. Just
Hmm.
keep in mind, it might be a couple of years. If you're
Yeah.
working with higher network clients, it's usually a longer sales cycle, right?
Hmm.
It's just keep in mind, it could be over a year, but it's
Hmm.
worth it, right?
Yes.
It's worth it. And that's why if you have a few of these working, you might have some wins earlier in these, but we're going for the big clients. So you can stop
Right.
working with a lot of small clients. That's a much better practice.
Right. Well, Jon, where is the best place for people to learn more about you or get in touch with you?
Our website's the best, xfa.coach. There's some free resources on there. Plus, we're about every other week, we're hosting a scaling workshop where we dive deeper into some of these things and give advisors some helpful feedback on there. So yeah, any of your listeners, we'd love to have them on to check out some free stuff or see if they qualify for one of our workshops.
All right. Well, I'll link to all of that in the show notes. And thank you so much, Jon. This has been lovely.
Thank you, Hillary. Looking forward to more.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Finance Marketing Podcast. If you're eager to market your business in a way that feels good and actually gets results, sign up for the Finance Marketing Podcast newsletter in the show notes so you never miss another episode. If you liked what you heard today, please be sure to subscribe to the show on your favorite listening app and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. We'll see you back here next Friday.